The problem is, I think, in the federal or government in general, government work, is that it's usually not subject to the same scrutiny as far as any downsizing or really looking at the efficiency of those positions. So many times you do have, and again, if I'm wrong, people can prove me wrong, but I think that's why we ended up having this Doge issue. Back in the building on the Crucial Combo podcast, joining me on this thing. We just wanted to jump into a few conversations like we do. So hope everybody's good. Hope you're tuning into the channel. I appreciate all the new subscribers. Appreciate all the comments, good and bad, because we are in interesting times. And, I think we're in like a information war right now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, man, take in all the information, have conversations, talk to people who don't agree with you.
Yes.
I think this is a great time for that. What do you think?
Great time for conversation. Great time to see perspectives. Great time to see your perspective, their perspective, and just listen. I would just say just listen and just listen to take in information, not listen to judge. Sometimes some people go in with their already preconceived notions and hard stances on things. Mm-hmm. But I would implore everyone to just listen and be open to understanding.
Yeah. Like I listen. Honestly, I like to have conversations to, not to be right. I love to be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because look, we're all everyday people. Everybody thinks they have the source or the exact information, as we talk back and forth about different issues. But the reality is like you just said, babe, people have their opinion based on who they listen to, based on their personal experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And then, based on their preconceived notions. So, so with so much going on, with the Donald Trump administration, you can never really stop talking about it because there's just so much. I mean, we thought the election was a big thing.
I know.
But the election was just the beginning.
That was just the start, man. That was just the start. I think this is how it's going to be the whole 4 years. That's just the energy that's given because it is drastic.
There's a lot of drastic changes.
There's
drastic changes. And you know what?
And always, resistance is always there with drastic changes.
Oh, for sure.
So that's why I think it's important for us to listen to people who have different perspectives than we do. Uh-huh. And not just stick with the same narrative when it comes to conversations amongst people.
100%.
Just don't get yourself comfortable there. It's good to feel uncomfortable. It's good to be uncomfortable. It's good to because I think that brings a level of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to pay attention to our uncomfortabilities and then question why do you feel uncomfortable with that?
Right.
Yeah. So I think a lot of learning is happening. I think we can all learn from each other. And I'm just loving having these conversations.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we're jumping into this stuff on, throughout reaction videos, throughout the panel that we do on Fridays, throughout our conversations. I think we're in an interesting time. So let's talk about federal workers. So obviously, I've been trying to just take in different information. I don't work for the government. I've never worked for the government. I've always been in private sector. Or as an entrepreneur working for myself. So that's what I know. I'm listening to all of the changes for federal workers, some who agree, many who don't disagree. And I'm sure, obviously, if you're affected by it, you're definitely not happy about it. So let me play a little bit of this real quick, talking about some of the purges in these departments. Let's talk about it.
Americans are soon going to feel the real world impacts of these firings. Do Musk and Doge have a master plan on how to go about cutting agencies? Or is Doge simply using some kind of a wrecking ball to dismantle any or all facets of the federal government?
So I'm pausing it there just for a second. It just outlined some of the firings amongst some of the departments. So Veteran Affairs, 1,000, Health and Human Services, 5,200. Interior Department, I'm not sure what Interior Department is, but 2,300. EPA, Environment Protection Agency, 388. Homeland Security,
A lot of this is
405.
driven by what Elon Musk sees on Twitter.
Wait,
Yes,
what?
there is a master plan to some extent. I think Elon Musk has surrounded himself with policy experts. He spent a lot of time during the transition talking with people who know about the budget, and people like Russ Vought, the OMB director, people like Stephen Miller, the deputy policy director, or deputy chief of staff in the White House. But, Elon is in a lot of ways driven by the types of things he sees on his platform. And he's driven by his group chats with his friends. He's driven by things he thinks are funny at times. And largely, Elon is executing, at least tactically, what he's doing on a day-to-day, in part based on kind of the stimuli that he sees on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm going to let that sit in for a second.
Okay, pause.
So there's a reason.
No.
There's a reason why I played it. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. There's a reason why I played it. Go ahead, please.
He is driven by what is mainly put on Twitter. Is that what he said? That's the thing he said?
That is what he said, yeah.
I would
do you think
love
about
to, I just want to know where he's getting that information, because that doesn't make sense to me. Because what I see happening, Elon Musk and his department, I'll just say that, they're going through things, they're finding waste, and they're getting rid of waste. That's how I see it.
Right.
And they're finding a lot of waste, and they're finding a lot of, I can't think of the other word. It starts with a P, but I can't think of the
I was going to say
mismanagement of funds and
Oh,
stuff
okay.
like that.
Oh, you're talking about fraud.
Fraud, yes. They're finding, I said
Yeah.
it started with a P.
PH fraud. That's how you spell fraud now. PHA.
Yes.
Fraud. Fraud. I'm finding fraud.
So they're finding a lot of this stuff, and they're just getting, they're making it efficient. They're making it work. They're trying to push all the BS out and let the money go to where it's supposed to go towards.
Well, let's play devil's advocate. Let's play devil's advocate.
Anything wrong with getting rid of something that is fraudulent and something that is costing us money what am I trying to say? It's costing us money.
No, but I got you. But let's. I feel you. But let's. The reason why you can knock that point out the park again and again.
Okay.
So the reason why I play this though is because I think that's part of the conversation. Before we even get to what you're saying, as far as the objective, the stated objective of Doge, there are people who don't like Elon Musk, right? So, we talked about this on Friday on the panel, that there is a level of, I don't know if I'm taking in the information from Elon because I don't know if I like Elon, or I don't know if I trust Elon. Now, that I can understand. I don't think I trust Elon any less than I trust anybody else who's in government, right? In my opinion. I know the argument is he wasn't elected and but as far as the elected government officials, I don't necessarily trust any of them either. What I look for information. So how do you trust somebody? How do you form trust? The only way you can form trust, in my opinion, is you're going to have to hear information. You're going to have to hear their objective first. Does the objective make sense? Number two, you're going to have to hear some type of information based on what they're trying to do. Now, it's early, so they're only been a couple weeks in. So you got to look at the description of the information they found thus far. And then from there, trust is built over time. Trust isn't just given. That's all my point I want to say. So, that's why I play this. Now, this is from MSNBC. We're in this strong information war. So obviously Fox or MSNBC are polar opposites. Obviously Fox is very pro-Republican, very pro-Trump. MSNBC is trying to save the Democrats. Trying to save the Democrats. So I mean, let's just keep it funky. And I get it. Crip blood Crip, whatever you want to call it. But going back to your point, I just wanted to lay that out before you said that, because that's the goal, right? Is the thing is that do Americans, the object of saving money in the government, is that something that people are uncomfortable with? What do you think?
Yeah, you would think that people are against saving the government saving money. That is the energy out there, which I really don't quite understand, because government don't make their own money. You know what I mean? The government's money is our money. So in essence, the government, with this efficiency task, they're saving us money.
Right.
So it's not like I feel like people's mindset, I don't know what the mindset is. I feel like it's not from anything, like as far as information that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's information based.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the person.
It's the person. It's the messenger.
It's the messenger. Had all of this happened in the Biden administration, I really don't feel like there will be such an uproar.
Right.
Because people would then be like, some people would then be like, yeah, he's doing the right thing, saving money.
Right.
So I really feel like it's like us versus them, da da da,
Right.
da da da. It's like us against them, and Democrats against
who the hell is us? Who the hell is us, and who the hell is them?
Versus, the middle class, because they consider them rich, with which they are. You know what I mean? And for some reason, there's a tie.
Democrats are rich too.
I know, right?
The Democrats are rich too. Like, you know what? Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but go ahead.
It's 1%.
I got you.
All the money in the world, basically.
I got you.
Why are you giving it to him? He has all the money in the world. Guess what? He's not getting paid for this. He's not getting paid for this. No, nobody on his team is getting paid for this. They're there to do a job. And let me finish. I know you're about to say something.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not gonna stop you. Go ahead.
So back to your original point. Do you think people don't want the government to save money, even though that's the narrative because they're fighting against it so much? If that's the narrative that's being pushed, that's not it. It's because they don't like them.
Right.
That's all it is.
Right.
It's because they don't like them.
I got you.
This team. So President Trump, Elon Musk, know. So yeah, that's all it is. It's apparent.
That's apparent.
That's apparent. It's definitely not information based.
So the thing is that's why I'm like, I think it's interesting, because it's like, how do we have a conversation beyond that? Like, how do we have a conversation beyond that that's not about them versus us? Because I think that's where things get lost. So let me play a little bit more about the job losses.
Bureaucracy. You got 9 of the government agencies that Musk has targeted. They were mentioned in Project 2025, and that includes the Department of Education, Agriculture, Health and Human Services. Will the end justify Musk's means? I mean, will he get rid of waste and save taxpayer money? Is there reason to believe that his motives aren't purely personal or just ideological?
I'm not somebody who personally thinks, based on my reporting, that Elon is doing anything personally, or driven primarily personally by, a desire to cut back on investigations into himself, or to, defang regulations that could hurt his companies. But it is true that will happen along the way, right? I mean, I think the reason we've done so much reporting on these conflicts of interest is not to say that Elon Musk is motivated by these things, but it is, a conflict that is not really being managed. The management has been basically Trump saying that he won't let Elon, do anything that he doesn't think he shouldn't do. Elon has suggested at times he'll sort of do this policing himself. I think generally Elon Musk is genuinely motivated by a desire to cut back on waste, fraud, and abuse. I think he believes everything he's doing is waste, fraud, and abuse. But that phrase has become sort of a catch-all to mean a lot of things. That could mean cutting the Department of Education because you believe the Department of Education shouldn't be so empowered at the federal level. But is that waste, fraud, and abuse, or is that just kind of for, a smaller federal government?
When you dig a little deeper is all I'm saying. Instead of just seeing it from the surface, like, oh, he's dismantling the Department of Education. Horror, alarms. Instead of like getting so freaked out just by that statement, figure out why. Why would he be dismantling and breaking it down and telling you that he's going to put it back in the control of the states? Why?
Yeah, I'm listening to you. That's the point.
What the federal government is regulating right now is not working. We are in the lowest half of math, reading, and writing. I think it's reading actually, and math. We are very low on
Well, we're not top in education. I mean, everybody knows that. Well, yes, I'm glad you said that.
I just feel like there should be just go a level deeper. Just get off of level 1. Go to actually I don't know, go to level 1 or go to the
But that's the whole point of having the discussion, because at the end of the day, like it's not just the Department of Education, but it's an example. And I'm glad you said that. It's an example. So all these different departments, right? So I like this guy who's speaking because at least he's on MSNBC, but he's not like, oh yeah, Elon Musk wants to take over the world and all these wild, anything's possible, but not everything's probable, as they say. So it's like, yeah, Elon Musk is worth $400 billion. Does it make him a great person? Do I know him personally? Do I like him? No, I don't care about that.
Right.
But the point is, is it probable that he's trying to get a power grab? No, it's just doesn't quite make sense. So I'm like, we got to start looking at it and say, just because if we don't like something that's being done doesn't mean that it has some like negative motive, to your point. Yeah. Like with the U.S. Department of Education, well, the question would be, like you just raised, is it efficient? Is it serving its purpose? And those are the conversations where I feel like that's where we have the back and forth, whether you say the Democrats or Republicans or whoever. That's where we start having the conversations to discuss. If he wants to get rid of it, they start discussing why. Yeah. And then the people who want it to stay start discussing why it should stay and the things that it's doing, the things that it's done and the things that it's doing. But that's not happening. That's not happening in a lot of, they're talking about the Department of Veteran Affairs, U.S. Forests, all these different departments. So it's not like, oh, everybody in that department is worthless. People are just going to like the most extreme on every part of the conversation. Right.
And there are some departments that are not going to be completely gotten rid of, too. They're just making it more efficient.
Yeah. That's it. Yes. I'm sorry. That's the better way.
Just making it more efficient. Just because these departments that you see are listed doesn't necessarily mean all of them are going to go.
Correct.
There's going to be some changes, just like any other business that will do their audit on a yearly basis just to make sure it's functioning well and money is coming in and not being overly spent in some areas. You have to do that if you're running a business, and in a sense, running this country
is a business.
It's a business. You're establishing relationships with other people, and you got money coming in, you got tax, you got to pay this, that, and the other. I mean, it's a business.
Well, you know what? But to your point, like, here's the thing. And we were talking about this earlier as far as, I've never worked for the government.
Me either.
You always worked in private. So private and entrepreneurship over here. And then the thing is that most people don't work for the government. Most people are not government workers. So I think that, again, also with government workers, there is a huge appreciation for all our civil servants. Everybody's jumping to the worst extreme. But the reality is you're never guaranteed a job in the private sector. You're never guaranteed anything in the private sector. It is like you are subject to how the company's doing. You're subject to layoffs, downsizing, because that's how payroll is made. Now, in the federal government, what I think the problem is, and we talked about this earlier, even as far as state and local government, the problem is, I think, in the federal or government in general, government work, is that it's usually not subject to the same scrutiny as far as any downsizing or really looking at the efficiency of those positions. So many times you do have, and again, if I'm wrong, people can prove me wrong, but I think that's why we ended up having this Doge issue, is you have, in some cases, you do have some people who are employed who they're not evaluating the efficiency, and they're essentially, not that they're worthless, but they're doing a job that may not be as most efficient and working for a long time. Everybody knows in some cases in government jobs, it's like, yo, okay, you're going to work this government job. You're going to be there for 20, 30 years. You're going to retire, get your pensions. Cool. That's what everyday people want. You want security. You want your job. But when you step outside of the government space, all of us who work outside of that space understand that I can't just go for a company and just be there forever. That's some cases. But in a lot of cases, even if you're going to be there, you're going to have to make it through a lot of changes, and you're going to have to update your skill set. You may not be there. It's not as guaranteed. So I think that, again, I'm not saying that that's the lives of every government worker, but government allows for less, in my opinion. It allows for less oversight in that sense as far as efficiency.
Everybody looks for efficiency in their life, not just in the business, but even in your personal life. You look for something efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Efficiency is just a part of life. It's a part of business. Efficiency, yeah, why waste? You know what I mean?
Well,
why waste? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, I want things to be ran as efficient as possible. Honestly.
so here's the question. So this is where the argument comes in from the people who are annoyed and mad. It's hitting you personally. And if it were hitting us personally, well, what will we do? Now, I don't know what to say about that other than just to say what I think we would do. If it was hitting us personally as a couple,
Mm-hmm.
the life that I've lived so far, I would just kind of just deal with whatever's going to come because, again, I don't even know how to describe it. I think it's just that I haven't lived in a way where I've had any job, or even as an entrepreneur, I never had nothing guaranteed to me. So I always knew it was something subject to, especially, like I said, I can't say it enough. Things change in the private sector. The company that you work with 5 years ago, 10 years ago ain't the same company. Things change all the time. They get rid of departments because, like, let's say, for example, I'll just use private banking as an example. I worked in private banking when I was in my early 20s and up to 30s or early 30s. And man, there were departments that changed because the industry changed.
I mean, same here.
dig what
I've
I'm
been in
saying?
healthcare, and I've worked with a number of companies that receive federal funding.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's been a lot of changes in Medicare, changes in Medicare where we have to, as therapists, now we're only going to get paid a certain amount of money if, the scores are going to be this or that. I mean, it changes in Medicare all the time. So then the organization itself has to also change to go with those regulations.
hmm
And that's just one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that I've worked in a hospital that wasn't receiving a lot of business, but they had a lot of staff, and
Okay.
they had to go through the budget as well. A lot of people got fired, and
Okay.
and people got laid off. Some people
Okay.
got laid off. So there are changes that happen in the private sector
Hmm.
for sure. That is kind of like what's going on like right now,
Right now.
just to make, number one, things more efficient.
hmm
Number two, to meet payroll,
hmm
to meet the budget. Right now we are how much trillion? How many trillion in
the actual debt. Let's look at the actual debt right now. Right. So I think the total debt held by by the public is 30 trillion.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah,
that's the
so
total
I
number.
think
Yeah.
he said it was close to 40.
Mhm.
But yeah, anyway, being that far in debt.
But I don't want you to lose the point of. I wanted you to talk about being in the hospital. Yeah, I was just talking about how a lot of times there are layoffs in that sector in medical that people don't realize, and it's either because of like you said, it could be issues with funding from federal, or it could be just issues with management
Right.
in the hospital.
Yeah.
So just the point of it is, I'm just nailing down the point that people outside of the government who are people like yourself who work in medical face layoffs and things like that all the time too.
Well,
So it's just,
absolutely.
I think
I mean,
people
it
don't
could,
understand
I
it.
mean, it could, I mean, I'm thankful for the field that I'm in, because I don't think it would happen
Yeah.
for me, because we're heavily needed in this area.
Well, that's the difference.
yeah.
That's the difference, right? There, see, there you go. And that's why I was saying that, right? So you're not getting spared of a layoff because just because.
No, it's never
You're
just
getting
because.
spared of a layoff because of what you just said.
Right.
You are needed. That's the reality. I'm not saying government workers who are getting laid off are not needed, but the question is, you're subject to that based on who's managing it. So that's all the point I was trying to make. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
No, that was a good point. That was
No.
a great point. Yeah. When there's a need, then it stays. If there's no need for it, then why waste?
Yeah, because if you're not needed, or someone deems that you're not needed, they can find something efficient to do it, you're done.
Right.
you're done. And that's,
Or maybe more than one person can do that task.
yes,
You know what I mean?
yes, yes,
They have
yes.
multiple tasks that kind of fit in the same category. So they may just designate it to one person instead of
Yep.
3 people.
I mean, it happens. I mean, like I said, in private, I've seen it all the time. I've seen it where departments. I used to work in a department at a investment bank, and there were 3 managers, and at one point they came in and got rid of 2 of the managers. That was right after 2009, or right into 2009 after the financial collapse. They came in. There were 3 managers. I don't know what their salaries were, but they took them 3 managers and turned them into 1 manager, managing all those. They got rid of 2 salaries. And then I think they got rid of a couple of other managers above that manager. But that happens in the public sector. So the point is that, there is no, when you're outside of government, there is nobody having sympathy for the private workers. There's nobody marching. There's nobody saying, oh, that's so bad.
That's true.
It's just not seen. And again,
it happens more frequently in the private sector.
it happens, and the way people look at it is different because, like, for instance, when you laid off in the private sector, everybody performs a service to the public. So even just because you're a civil servant working in the government doesn't mean that the service that you provide in the private sector is invaluable. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you don't work for the government, but you provide a service to people who need it. So
Absolutely.
no one's going to come along and say, well, Faith got laid off and nobody that doesn't know you is going to go march and say, well, these particular workers are needed. Nah, it's just like, whatever. You don't work for the government, so you're not seen like
For
that.
the next job.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good luck, Godspeed on the next job.
For the next
So it's not a matter of people not caring about federal workers, but in my opinion, this has come into play because we've never had any administration really look into this stuff. Right. So let me go into.
See, if this was happening more frequently, like it should, honestly, this should be like a frequent thing that they do. I don't know, audit every 5 years or so. Maybe, every year. I don't know if that's too much, but there should be an audit more frequently.
Well, here's the thing that I'm glad you said that because, we're all learning. And like I said, I don't like that. Like I know everything like a lot of other people online. Like they did have a government efficiency office. I forgot the exact title, but it was a government efficiency office that existed. The problem is that, to your point, I don't think they were doing real audits to understand what was going on in the government.
Yeah, because they missed it.
Well, yeah, they missed it. So that's why I'm going to go to this video with Trump and Musk talking about this a couple of days ago about some of the things.
But you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit, and if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. The interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million,
right,
etc.?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense.
Before we get into that, that was one of the things that, again, whether you like Elon Musk or don't, it's worth looking into because that's important. When it comes to government, that's one of the things that happens all over the world. Many people do enrich themselves after getting into government. And that's not a Republican or Democrat thing. That is a government thing. Mm-hmm. And for them even to talk about it on this level is at minimum interesting. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand people being angry. I think that it's not even new. If you go to most countries, you look at government officials. There are a lot of government officials who were broke or just regular people, and they got into government and amassed a lot of wealth. Where did it come from?
That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, if you look at, say, Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list. And even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay.
So just that piece alone, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And it is very conceivable. Not even conceivable. I know this is not a lie. There are surely people who, because he talks about it further, about some people getting some Social Security payments that are going out to people who are 125, 150
years old.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's going to happen because you don't have efficiency and the government is slow moving, and this is what happens.
Apparently lazy
and or inefficient. You may have some of both, but it's hard to really know until you look at some of the discrepancies. So the anger here, I just look at it as an everyday person. When I go to listen to this, I say, okay, because I've talked about this with some people. It's like, well, I don't know if I can believe it. Okay, cool. But listening to it, does it sound like something rehearsed, made up? Why is someone worth $430 billion? Gives a damn about.
And then I would ask, like, I would like to ask, like, why do you think it's not believable? Why do you think
the answer
he's
to that?
Lying? Like, what proof do you have that he's lying? Do you have something that disputes what he's saying? I would just throw the question back.
No one has proved one way or the other. So I don't like this guy.
Then that's it.
That's
I'd rather
I
you
don't
just be honest
I,
and say that. I don't like this guy.
I don't like this guy, and I don't trust the.
Don't.
Yeah,
Because I don't like this guy.
but
Okay, so it got really nothing to do with what he's saying.
right. So that it leads to a dead end, and that's
And it leads to a
and that's
dead end.
that's what we're trying to not do is have dead end conversations.
Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like it's just common sense. It's not. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it. And that they receive it quickly and accurately. I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this, obviously there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And what do you mean a mine? There's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
So that right there is a great point to trying to listen to, because like I was saying earlier, he talked about how they have this is a limestone mine with manual paperwork, which limits how many people can retire. It's something that again, it's not something that is really controversial. I think it's just about looking at the level of efficiency, and I think a person arguing that I don't understand. I don't understand what the argument is. You know what I mean?
I mean, there shouldn't be an argument because they're going to go through every agency.
Yeah.
They're going to go through every agency. There's no ill intent. There's just no ill intent. They're realizing that our country is in trouble, real big trouble.
Yeah.
Because if we continue down this path, the dollar isn't going to be worth anything, right?
100%.
It's already going low. The dollar isn't going to be worth anything, and our country is going to be broke. Then I would like to know what you would have to say about that.
Well,
our lives will not be the same, so, and the country.
Let me, I'm going to move on from this one. There's a lot of decent stuff he had to say in this clip. But what's interesting is that, I think Americans were never happy. We're never happy. And I think that we want it all. That's what I think. I think we're just look, at the end of the day, I grew up here. I was born here.
Efficiency, but yet we don't want.
Well, you're off the mic.
I know, but then we don't want the efficiency.
I like the head trick though. He's like,
I mean, that's what it is.
No, it is. Yeah.
We want
it all.
I don't even know what other example, but
we want it all.
We want to save money, yet these things over here, we need to spend money on.
Shouldn't cut none of those.
We shouldn't cut nothing over here.
So No, listen, I made this.
Right. We're never happy.
Americans we are the most entitled people ever, because what happens is that, to me, when you go and you live somewhere else, right, and you start understanding that everything doesn't happen quickly, and everything doesn't happen the way you want, right, and you're not guaranteed anything. When you start getting outside of that of what we live in, you start understanding that, okay, I don't really have it that bad. America's not perfect, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at the debt that's been racked up, and it's been racked up by Republicans and Democrats, so I'm not talking about that. But if an administration comes in and they say, we're going to make this more efficient, and I made this point on Friday with the panel, if someone goes in and they go to look at a company to make it more efficient, they may say, okay, marketing spends 50% of the budget. Then it's still not going to go to marketing first. They're going to go to payroll. They're going to see where can we cut jobs. That's the way it always happens. So I do feel for people who are losing their jobs. But I think the reality is that if they can get to a more efficient place as far as government, there are some people, like we talked about. We know some people who have to go back physically to work instead of doing remote. But that happens in the private sector. There were people who were working remote. That was the life they lived, and it was great. People who work for Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these other tech companies. There were mad tech workers they hired during the pandemic boom. And then look, a couple years later, it's like, listen, we got to let y'all go. Or y'all who are working remote, you got to come back to the office. Nobody was marching and be like, yo, what about all these workers and their families and their mortgages and their car? I didn't see no government workers say nothing. I didn't see nothing. I just like, well, it's like, oh, well, all right, they got to find another job. Am I wrong? No. What's the difference? Thousands of workers lost their job because of changes in their employer. Why was nobody marching for that? Why was nobody up in arms? Why were there no public officials saying anything? Of course.
An applause button.
I got one. I'll put it. As I'm wondering, I'm just saying, it's job loss, not job loss. So now all of a sudden, if you're not crying a river, now all of a sudden you have no sympathy. You don't care about humanity and government workers. No, it's not like that. I'm just saying that there is a conversation to be had, and I'm sure we can't say every layoff or firing is wrong, but we can't say everyone is right. So I'm open to listen. That's why I'm like, well, what are they finding? And when they go through the other departments, again, I'm not arguing for it. I'm just trying to get more information and trying to understand. It doesn't affect me personally because I don't work for the government. But I think that one of the lessons is that when you work for the government, sometimes things are going to happen. Before I get in, I want to talk about immigration too, because we talked about that before. I just want to talk about the DMV. Now, the DMV, how horrible was it going to the DMV in the past? What was it like for you going to the DMV?
God, I don't know. I had to have like 6 or 9 references of who I was.
DNA. Fingerprints.
Gotta take your
hair
vital signs. Yeah, and all that. It was just a lot. And if you didn't have it, you got to go back home, get it. Yeah, it was a process going from one teller, staying in one line to get one thing done, then going to another line and waiting for another 20, 30 minutes to get that thing done. Then you got to wait in line to get your picture taken. And then if you smile too much, they want to retake the picture because you're showing too much teeth. Yes.
I remember
don't
that.
smile that big.
I don't remember that. You cheesing too much. Just your regular smile, ma'am. Regular smile. We don't need all that cheesing.
Said don't smile so big. I'm like,
they're taking using them old school cameras.
I'm not supposed to show teeth or something like that, or barely show your teeth. Yes, I had to take it a few times. So.
And even when you had a goofy picture, they wouldn't let you take it again. Like when you get the goofy picture, they wouldn't let you redo it back then.
Like your eyes half closed.
This is fine. That'll be fine. Now, why do I bring up the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles? Why do I bring it up? I bring it up because it's just an example. I'm not saying that this is all of government, but just an example. DMV is paid for by the state government. If I'm wrong, please let me know, but that's my understanding. So the DMV is a good example because the DMV for a long time was completely inefficient, completely. It was a place, like you said, you stood in one line to show your identification, another line to fill out the information for your document, another line to do a picture. I mean, you would be in there for hours, 4 hours, 5. I mean, I'm not playing. You'd be in there for hours. If you got in the DMV and were out in 2 hours, you were lucky. Most of the time, you was there a long time. My God. So point being is that you would go in there, you'd have workers who were working very slow, very inefficient, most of the time had nasty attitudes. And I'm talking about different DMVs. I've been in DMVs all throughout Illinois. I've been through ones in New Jersey. Same nasty attitudes in different states. It doesn't change. Why? Because they barely could get fired. There was no look of any level of efficiency. So there was no consequences of being inefficient, right? None. So you go through all this stuff. You're in all these lines. They would have lines wrapping out the door, especially on Saturdays. And if you weren't inside the door at a certain time, go back home, come back next week. Thank you. So they, or if you were missing one little piece of information, or if something was unclear, they were always nasty. Well, you don't got it next. So, but now what has changed? So they decided to modernize it. There's many states that decide to modify or modernize the DMV, right? So one of the things that was happening with the DMV, antiquated computer systems of record keeping, right? What did they decide to do? They updated a lot of their digital systems. They updated renewals so you could renew online. You could get your plates online, things that you had to do physically. Not to mention, most people had to take off of work if they couldn't go on a Saturday because Saturday was just too crazy. So this is something that should have been done a long time ago. And there was a public demand for things like digital services to meet the services of people. Now, mind you, these DMV workers that used to be in there, they would act like they were paying you. Meanwhile, your state taxes were paying them, and they was treating you like something crazy. So why I say all that? It's just an example of one agency, at least on a state level, that needed to be more efficient as far as the data and the service to the public. So my point is, when you parallel that to some agencies in the government, there are probably some antiquated systems. And that's why I think Musk went in there with these young digital technical geniuses, if they are, or technical, wherewithal youngsters who know how to help to get this thing going. Because that's where everything is. Technology. Yeah. Technology makes all these things better. So efficiency isn't just cutting jobs per se, but it's also about updating systems that are antiquated and old.
Absolutely.
So,
and at the end of the day, when you update the systems and you computerize things, some people are going to lose their jobs. And it's just like I said, when you combine someone who's doing 3 separate jobs that can be done by one person, that's one way of making things work more efficiently. I think efficiency should be on all levels of government. It should be the state, local, and federal, because we're all paying into that.
100%.
It's our money. So, yeah, 100%. Things need to be fine-lined.
100%.
So that we can have the budget that we need in order for things to happen on a local level, too.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is.
Schools, budgets, people getting paid, teachers getting paid.
Yeah. I mean, the more people kind of, pay attention to that and start to cut the fat where it's needed, the more you
get rid of fraud.
Especially get rid of fraud. And, we talked earlier about all the people not even retroactively, but people getting arrested for the PPP loans. It is what it is, yo. If I watched the video yesterday about a guy in Texas who did a PPP loan, they came and knocked on his door. I think it happened a couple of weeks ago. So let's say now it's been almost 5 years now. And listen, man, if you took all that money from PPP, you defrauded the government. They're going to come back and get their bread. So we can't just sit here and say that any attempt to collect or any attempt to make the government more efficient is wrong. Now, I want to get into immigration slightly because we've seen a lot of changes over the last month since Trump got in office. Now, I'm not going to go on a long soapbox about immigration. I mean, immigration is something that, everybody has their agreement or disagreement. My only beef was that I feel like a lot of the black community was they were trying to strap this on the back of black people was a little annoying to me. And I'm like, okay, sure, there are people who are darker complected who are being evicted.
This definitely wasn't our fight.
Evicted, my bad. Deported.
Deported.
My bad. But here's the thing. I want to play this clip from Michael Blackson talking about, he's a comedian, talking about immigration real quick. Let me play
But you also have to keep in mind that as soon as Trump became president, he wiped out DEI. He wiped out affirmative action. He wiped out a lot of programs that have historically helped black people and women. That's all gone now. So the same people that supported and voted for him, ultimately, like look at all the immigrants that voted for him, like Mexicans for Trump.
Well, I mean, time out. They're not going to be voting if they're illegal aliens. So,
I remember there's a story that I found out where this guy was a huge Trump supporter. As soon as he was elected, his wife got deported.
I mean, all right. Here's my thing with deportation and people living here illegally.
Yeah.
Okay, when I came to the States over 30 years ago, I mean, this is like coming to America is probably easier trying to get to heaven. That's how hard it is. That's how hard it is to come to America for a black person or a foreign person or a brown person. 8 out of 10 people that go to the U.S. Embassy in African countries get turned down.
Just want to pause that there because I made this point before. And I was trying to explain when I was talking to people who are up in arms about immigration that when you look at, there's a lot of people that want to come to America, not just people in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who would cut off their arm to get on a plane to come here.
All over the world.
All over the world who are suffering too. And he just said 8 out of 10 are turned down.
Some government official or you got a scholarship to go to school. Mm-hmm. America wants to know when you're coming, why you're coming, and when you're going to fuck back to your country.
Right. And I just want to say, it's not just America. Like, for example, my friend Napoleon from the Outlaws, he's been living in Saudi Arabia for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. He has businesses, he has restaurants and everything else like that. In our last interview, I said, "You're a citizen, right?" He goes, "Oh, no, I'm not a citizen. I have a work permit." Yeah. But to be a citizen, you have to either be like a college professor or you have to have really deep government ties. Because he basically said Saudi Arabia is like a welfare country where they get a lot of benefits from just being in Saudi, a Saudi citizen. You get free college, free healthcare, whatever. So a lot of people want to come there just for that. So yeah, you go to other countries, you can't just become a citizen there either.
When I'm talking about citizenship, I'm talking about just permission to come to the United States.
And stay. Just
to visit.
All right, because you need a visa.
The visa. Yeah. To get a visa, they want to know why, when, and when you're going to fuck back.
Right.
Black people don't, if you want to go to Mexico from here, they ain't asking you all that.
Right.
You don't need a visa. So it's very hard to come here. So those who come here from wherever they, all the difficulties they had to go through to get a visa to come to this country, it's what made this country elite. Hard to get in,
right.
Yeah, no.
Yes, I'm sure there are some people who've been arrested or there's some injustices happening here and there, but the deportations were necessary for that reason because you had millions and millions of people coming over here and all of a sudden it's, of course, being thrown into the minority basket of rights and civil rights. And I find it offensive. And I've had people, this guy, Michael Blackson's from Ghana, same home country. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Same place my parents are from. And I try to tell people, I'm like, but they didn't just sneak over the border. Mm-hmm. Like he just said, 8 out of 10 are denied. When you got coming over here, they do scrutinize, especially if you're coming from Africa. What are you coming for? How long you going to be here? You know what I'm saying? And you got to prove that you are here to work and you're here, so you can't just come in here and then we'll figure it out later. I'm going to just come in illegally and we'll figure it out later. In the meantime, subsidize me, take me in. If we're talking about sanctuary and trying to save people, there are people all over the world who are going through stuff. So my thing is that people have to understand that the immigration conversation is something that, again, is maybe uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Mm-hmm. So that's my whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be a process for things like that. There should be a process for everything, Yeah, I mean, it's a process. It's a process, and you got to go through it the right way. That's all I can say about immigration.
Yeah, I mean, I think no, you know what? It's not honestly, it's not even that complicated. It's about that simple. And I think that it's been turned into all these different things. There's so much speculation on what Holman and
It's a slap in the face for people who have actually gone through the process. It is
yes,
such a huge slap in the face for those who have had to go through that process, because I'm sure it took a long, long time. So, yeah,
I don't know why that's not talked
I-
about. For whatever reason, if you had somebody who, let's say, 5 years ago, before this was a big conversation, not like illegal immigration is new, but for people before, during Biden's administration, when we had all the quadrupling of people coming in, let's say someone came in 2 years before that, and and they had went through all the processes, and it wasn't easy, and XYZ, and then they see a couple of years later, millions of people come in. Someone's getting subsidized. What if you're witnessing that? Someone who had to go through that, and you watch somebody come in for asylum, they're getting subsidized, and then they're able to just stay. Because we all know if Kamala had won, all these people in the country would have just stayed.
Well, the Latino men spoke up on that.
Yeah, of course they did.
They got Trump numbers too.
Of course, yeah.
Trump got their numbers.
That's why people are trying to say now that they voted for Trump. Yeah, but every Latino isn't for illegal immigration. I just think it's an insult.
Yeah, that is an insult. That is an insult.
It's just an insult to assume that every Latino is pro illegal immigration. It's wrong because
Clearly not.
it's clearly not that way.
Go look at the votes.
Yeah,
Clearly not.
and there's some people who may regret it because they may not like the way ICE and Holman is dealing with things. But at the end of the day, you may not like the method of how things are done all the time. That's just part of life. You're never gonna like anything. Every person, someone who you vote for, you're not gonna like everything that they do.
They've had some people on this list who were supposed to be detained 6 years ago.
Yeah, even more than that. Even 10 years ago, there are people who had it. I watched the guy got arrested in Chicago. He wasn't even from Venezuela. He might have been from Thailand, but he was convicted of child molestation and rape and stuff, and they had picked him up. He was on that Dr. Phil show. When it comes to this stuff, we just in an interesting time in America, and I think that people got to stop trying to pick a side. You know what I'm saying? Don't pick a side. Just understand the issue and understand that everybody ain't going to be happy with everything. There's no way you're going to please everybody. America